The third time Lena woke up with keyboard indentations on her cheek, she knew she was close. It was 2:41 a.m. The office was dead quiet, just the gentle hum of server fans and the flickering green LED from her docking station, blinking like a heartbeat. Her coffee had long gone cold. She took a sip anyway. Bitterness helped her focus. The interface stared back at her, clean, deceptively simple. 6 months of nights like this, crawling through outdated API documentation, reinventing half the data pipeline because the legacy systems were duct-taped together by ghosts of ex-employees. But it worked. Her dashboard didn't just display numbers, it told a story. Trends, correlations, silent red flags buried under chaos, all surfaced in a few clicks. Executives wouldn't need a PhD in statistics to make smart decisions anymore. They just needed Lena's tool. He didn't call it revolutionary. She called it overdue. The company was hemorrhaging talent. Mid-level managers were making 6 figures to shuffle decks around like PowerPoint was a religion. And somewhere under all the jargon and bureaucracy, Lena had clawed out something real. No team, no funding. Just her, 2 extra monitors she'd scavenged from the IT closet, and the stubborn belief that clarity shouldn't be this rare. Then came Derek Lang. Derek was the kind of man who used the word synergy like it had healing properties. Gelled hair, Rolex he made sure you noticed, a voice tuned precisely to sound confident while saying absolutely nothing. Officially, he was her manager. Unofficially, he was a bottleneck with a tailored suit. At first, he didn't care about her project. That was the best part. Lena thrived in his disinterest, slipping under the radar while she built her prototype in peace. That changed the moment she submitted her demo for internal review. Not a full release, just a pulse check. Feedback from leadership could help her shape the next iteration. The morning after she sent the deck, Derek showed up at her desk holding a cappuccino he didn't offer. "I took a look," he said, already nodding like they were in agreement. "Super promising, really disruptive stuff." Lena blinked. Derek never complimented without motive. She smiled politely. "Thanks. There's still a lot to refine." "Oh, of course. But I've got a few thoughts, big picture things. Maybe we could talk through it, strategize next steps." That was the first alarm bell. Derek didn't strategize, he absorbed. Over the next few days, he became omnipresent, asking for slide decks to help him understand the framework, then suggesting small changes that sounded cosmetic but subtly shifted ownership. He inserted himself into email threads, scheduled meetings with her name in the invite title, then uninvited her last minute with vague notes like leadership conflict. "We'll catch you up later." One Friday, she walked past the executive briefing room just in time to see Derek inside, gesturing toward a screen. Her interface, her logic model, her layout. She wasn't in the room. That night, she stayed until 4 a.m., rewriting half the back end just to feel like something still belonged to her. Mind games continued. Derek started using phrases like our vision and collaborative innovation, peppered with veiled critiques about Lena's limited visibility across teams. He offered to champion the project, as if she'd submitted it like a lost puppy and not built it line by line. Lena didn't confront him, not yet. She logged everything, downloaded email chains, saved version histories, quietly updated admin settings she wasn't supposed to still have access to, remnants of an old security pilot she'd helped with before Derek even knew her name. She watched the tides shift. Her meetings got canceled, her updates ignored. People started associating the project with Derek's leadership. She knew what was happening, but she wasn't ready to burn it all down. Not yet. The file was dead. Lena stared at the screen, blinking like the system was lying to her. Her prototype, the one she'd been refining in obsessive 2 a.m. sprints, now sat in the internal repository with a thick red banner across the top, archived. No explanation. No changelog. No trace of who had issued the command. She clicked deeper. The status field had been manually overridden, no auto-archive, no approval workflow. Just vanished, like it never mattered, like she didn't matter. Her fingers hovered above the keyboard, fists clenching and unclenching. The only person she'd given that internal demo link to? Derek Lang. He tried to be rational. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe some IT bot had flagged it for storage limits. Maybe Derek just forgot to tell her he moved it, so she pinged him. No reply. She tried again the next day. Then the day after, still nothing. Her weekly one-on-ones canceled twice. The calendar invites disappeared with a chirpy rescheduled due to conflict, but no new dates. She left messages, tagged him in Slack, sent a status update with a progress chart. Silence. At first, she thought maybe he was swamped. It was end-of-quarter chaos. Maybe he was doing damage control with finance or HR. Derek always did love to pretend he was the glue holding the corporate circus together. Then came the comment. She was in the break room heating up a leftover stir-fry when she overheard two junior analysts talking. One of them, Ben, or maybe Brett, mentioned Derek was offsite for investor relations. Lena didn't move. Just watched the microwave numbers tick down as her stomach twisted into a knot. Investor relations. What the hell was Derek doing talking to investors? She wasn't invited to anything like that. And if this was about her prototype, their prototype, according to Derek's latest branding spin, then why was she still in the dark? Her appetite evaporated. She left the food in the microwave and walked straight back to her desk. She pulled up the internal scheduling tool. Not the normal calendar view. This was the admin console she still had back-end access to, thanks to her stint during the cross-functional security initiative that everyone else forgot about. It took her 3 logins and a 2-factor code from her old credentials. Then she was in. She filtered by Derek's username. There it was. Thursday, 1 o'clock, 3 o'clock p.m. Investor Demo Conference Room B. Friday. 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock p.m. Private Presentation. External stakeholders private. Stakeholders. She leaned back in her chair, trying not to hyperventilate. The pieces started clicking together, one at a time, like slow dominoes falling in her chest. The archived file, the sudden silence, the ghost meeting she wasn't invited to. He took it. Not just the idea, not just the code, he took everything. And now he was out there selling it, pitching it, standing in a room full of money and ambition, and passing off her blood-sweat-coated prototype like it fell out of his polished mouth one morning over brunch. And she was just supposed to rot in the cubicle he left behind. Lena didn't cry. She opened the server logs. Derek had downloaded her original files at 11:03 p.m. 2 weeks ago, just after one of their late-night review sessions. She hadn't even noticed. The version history had been scrubbed clean the next morning, replaced with vague file names like Executive Model V Final 2. She copied the logs, backed up everything, took screenshots, dated them, timestamped them. Then she opened a blank text document and wrote 4 words, "He's not ready yet." Neither was the storm she was about to bring. "Guess genius wears loafers now," one of the devs laughed. Lena paused in the hallway just outside the kitchenette, her paper cup half filled with burnt drip coffee. She didn't recognize the voices at first, junior devs from the new product cohort. Interns with badges still stiff from lamination. They were chuckling over something on a laptop, sipping matcha, like they'd cracked the meaning of life. He was waving his hands like Steve Jobs, the other said. Swear to God. The VCs looked hypnotized and even asked if the real-time trend resolution engine was patentable. Lena didn't move, not even a blink. She slid 1 step backward, quietly enough not to interrupt the chuckles. One word echoed in her skull like a dull church bell, VCs. Her hands clenched the coffee cup so tight the lid popped off and splashed lukewarm liquid across her knuckles. She didn't even flinch. Just dropped it into the trash like muscle memory and walked, calm, casual, back to her desk. This time, she didn't go to Slack, didn't bother pinging Derek. She went straight to the internal file repository. The secure one, usually restricted to shared decks used for executive-facing materials. And there it was. Vision Deck 2024 Final PPTX. She clicked it open. The preview loaded slowly, lagging just enough to let her heart start thudding against her ribs. Slide 1, company logo. Slide 2, unlocking patterned intelligence, the next generation of decision frameworks. Slide 3, her interface. The same one she designed down to the pixel. Same data feed mockups, same flow logic, even her dumb little placeholder chart labeled Lena Test. Except now, it was renamed to Lang Framework. The bastard didn't even change the axis labels. She hit File Info. Created by Derek Lang Modified. 4 days ago original creation date. Scrubbed, but not perfectly. She switched windows, opened the archived version of her original prototype deck, and compared metadata side by side. Then she pulled up the internal file server's access logs. Derek had downloaded her original at 11:03 p.m., renamed it at 11:07. He uploaded the edited version at 11:22 with all traces of her authorship stripped. All but one. Slide 9 still had a version comment buried in the notes section. Need to verify edge case handling in Q3 dataset anomalies, ask Lena. Her name, still there. She screenshotted everything. Full res, timestamps, file IDs, access logs, server names. She zipped it all into a folder and copied it to a private cloud drive under a project she labeled Damage Control. Her hands shook slightly as she zipped the folder. Not fear, voltage, rage with nowhere to land. But she kept her face still, not one expression. Someone walked by her cube and waved. She smiled back, nodded once, and went back to typing. She didn't scream, didn't stomp into Derek's office and demand to know what the hell he thought he was doing, because Derek would win that confrontation. He was the guy who laughed at legal disclaimers, who spoke in TED talk fragments and corporate buzzwords like they were scripture. He would gaslight, spin, and smother it under 1,000 layers of cross-functional synergy. She wasn't going to give him that stage. She was going to build one of her own. But first, she needed fuel, proof, a perfect fuse. And thanks to Derek's ego, she had just enough to light it. Lena hadn't thought about the security audit project in over a year, not since the execs abandoned it halfway through Q2 like a diet after Memorial Day. It was supposed to be a big interdepartmental cleanup, consolidating permissions, testing internal redundancies, purging zombie credentials from the investor demo infrastructure. Derek didn't even know she'd been part of it. Was still too busy pitching vision alignment to marketing to notice which systems she quietly stitched back together. And like most things at the company, once the spotlight moved on, the backend stayed neglected, which meant Lena's elevated permissions still worked. She tested them on Tuesday night, logged in through the old secure endpoint, password reset, two-factor prompt. A subtle breath caught in her throat, one hiccup, and it would all be over. Access granted. She was in. Investor conference systems backend opened like a neglected vault. Meeting schedules, presentation queues, access logs, even AV routing. Everything. She navigated to the calendar, filtered by Derek's credentials. Friday 3:00 p.m. pitch, series of follow-up conf. Room B attendees, 4 external redacted, 1 internal lang. No Lena, no other stakeholders, just Derek and a roomful of money. Perfect. She didn't feel rage anymore. That had passed. This wasn't about vengeance. Not yet. This was chess. And she finally saw the whole board. The next step was delicate. She pulled up the original prototype deck, the one she submitted before Derek's greasy fingers ever touched it. Then she duplicated it into a new file, not just a cosmetic edit, but a forensic fingerprint. She inserted metadata in layers. Slide notes. Internal file properties. XML-level document comments only visible when opened on certain platforms. Every one of them pointed back to her. Original author, Lena R. Kendall date created, 6 months ago comment, do not distribute, internal use only. Property of Kendall. Hidden tag, lang access flag. True, but the piece de resistance was buried deep in the author comment field. Concept stolen after internal review. Do your due diligence. Not accusatory, just informative. Neutral tone, cold facts. Let the viewer decide. She triple-tested the file. Opened it on 3 separate systems, ran it through an emulator. Every time the metadata loaded clean, but only when prompted. Subtle, controlled. By Thursday night, she had the trap primed. She uploaded the modified file to the demo system under Derek's presentation title. Same name, same location. But this time, when he hit the final slide, the system would freeze. Trigger a metadata inspection overlay. Display her name, her note, her timestamp. She didn't need to shout. She didn't need to crash the party. All she had to do was let the truth speak, digitally signed, time-stamped, and broadcast across a 75-inch LCD to a room full of sharks with checkbooks. Then she closed her laptop, leaned back, and stared at the ceiling. The fluorescence above flickered slightly, like the building was holding its breath. She cracked her neck once, then whispered to herself, check. At 8:13 a.m., Lena sent a one-line email to HR, not feeling well today, taking a sick day. No emojis, no apology, just enough to keep up the illusion. By 8:47, she was in the parking garage 3 levels down, dressed in what could generously be called corporate invisibility. Black jeans, a nondescript hoodie, the same battered sneakers she wore during all-nighters when no one was watching. Security didn't even glance at her. The lobby badge scanner still recognized her expired credentials, and no one questions a woman with a tote bag and a purpose. She slipped into the side corridor by the east stairwell and took the service elevator, slow, quiet, and most importantly, unseen. Conference Room B was on the 5th floor, far from her usual department. She knew the layout like muscle memory. She'd helped map it during the security audit while Derek was still mispronouncing blockchain. She entered through the maintenance door at 2:48 p.m., 12 minutes early. No one noticed. The room was all polished glass, chrome trim, and overpriced ergonomic chairs, just corporate enough to feel important, just sterile enough to forget. Derek was already there, strutting like a peacock with a Bluetooth headset slung over one ear. He wore the same blazer he always wore when trying to impress money, navy blue, sharp lapels, a pocket square that looked ironic but wasn't. The VCs began trickling in, 4 of them, 2 men, 2 women. Lena recognized none of their faces, but the confidence gave them away. These weren't mid-tier rubber stampers. These were check writers. Derek was all charm, laughing too loud, gesturing with his hands like the air itself agreed with him. She slipped into a back corner seat, unbadged, unacknowledged, and completely beneath his radar. Her hoodie shadowed her face. No one asked who she was. No one cared. 2:59 p.m. He dimmed the lights. 3:00 p.m. He clicked to slide 1. Her dashboard lit up across the massive screen, sleek and commanding, like it belonged in a product launch keynote. Her fonts, her colors, her data sets. Derek paced in front like a prophet. This, he said, voice calm and full of manufactured gravitas, is a paradigm shift in decision intelligence. We're not just visualizing data, we're narrating it. Slide 2. VCs nodded. Slide 3. One of them leaned forward, intrigued. Slide 4. He gestured at a predictive chart she built from 3 sleepless nights of debugging an uncooperative neural mapping API. Challenged our team to build something that would cut through noise, reduce cognitive friction, and unlock actionable insights. They delivered, they not Lena. She sat still, hands folded, pulse flatlining, not even blinking. The rage didn't rise anymore, it had calcified. She let him finish slide 5, then 6, then 7. The rhythm built, momentum, cadence, artificial enthusiasm expertly choreographed. Slide 8. He was in the home stretch. Selling vision, selling clarity, selling her. Her fingers hovered inside her tote, over the slim wireless keyboard she'd paired discreetly the day before. One key command, just one, but not yet. She watched him pause at slide 9, the Lang framework diagram, a dumbed-down abstraction of her layered logic model. Derek smiled wide. The kind of smile only someone fully convinced of their untouchable brilliance could conjure. Investing in this means investing in a future where every executive decision is rooted in insight, not instinct. One of the investors raised a hand. What inspired the core logic? The dynamic trend identification. You mentioned it was intuitive, but what's the source? Derek hesitated, just a flicker. Then his mouth opened. Words came out. Collaborative brainstorming, he said. Cross-team ideation. We've been prototyping off and on for months, finding based on feedback loops. You know, agile thinking meets real-world application. The VCs nodded, but slower now. The woman in the gray blazer jotted something down. Lena exhaled, long and quiet. Then she pressed the key. No sound, no flare, but the screen froze. The light stayed dim. Derek blinked at the laptop. Lena leaned back in her chair, watching him squirm. She didn't need to say a word. Her silence was now the sharpest weapon in the room. Derek pivoted with all the swagger of a man who'd never been told no in a boardroom. He flipped to the final slide, bold font, white space, a splash of blue gradient across the bottom. The words read, clarity, velocity, impact. He let the silence sit for a beat, hands clasped lightly in front of him like a pastor about to drop a benediction. Then he said, smooth as satin, "This is the kind of thinking we reward here." Line landed with the self-satisfaction of a mic drop. One of the investors even gave a small nod, lips pursed in approval. Derek smiled wider. He stood a little taller, chest angled toward the light like he'd just solved the industry's next trillion-dollar problem, and was generously offering everyone a chance to clap. Then came the question. A man in an oxblood suit leaned forward, index finger steepled against his lip. You mentioned dynamic trend analysis, how it adapts to incomplete data and still resolves pattern arcs. What inspired the logic behind that core model? The question was surgical, specific. Derek's smirk cracked just for a second. He blinked, looked back at the screen. Oh, that piece was built iteratively, he said. We used a hybrid framework, kind of Frankensteined between existing market tools and internal feedback cycles. A little trial and error. Think of it like evolution, but with intention. Gray blazer narrowed her eyes. Derek continued, reaching for confidence and pulling up vague jargon. The engine learns user priorities over time. It's less about raw data and more about how the data thinks. Kind of like neural filtration. We coined that term, actually. No one wrote that down. The air got heavier, like someone cracked a window but forgot to open it. Derek felt it too, his voice sped up slightly. It's flexible, highly modular, adaptable across verticals. We're talking healthcare, logistics, education, anywhere where noise hides truth. Still, no one moved. Lena watched from the shadows of the back row, legs crossed, arms resting in her lap like she was waiting for a show to finish. She could see the sheen of sweat forming near his hairline. The pitch was crumbling, not fast, but in micro-fractures. His language got blurrier. His metaphors clashed. Confidence that had once painted the room now looked like flaking wallpaper. She reached into her bag, pulled out her phone, opened the app she'd written herself the night before, a stripped-down admin trigger tied to the conference system's backdoor API. Her thumb hovered over the screen. This wasn't an impulse. This was timing. She waited. Derek turned back to the investors, trying to rally one last time. What we're offering isn't just a tool. It's a philosophy, culture of decision clarity. Click. The screen behind him froze mid-transition. The room went still. Derek turned, confused, tapped the spacebar. Nothing. The projector flickered, then blinked. New content loaded, slowly. No animations, no logo, just metadata. Plain, cold, and damning. Original author, Lena R. Kendall. Date created. December 12, 2023. Last edited by Derek Lang. Author comment. Concept stolen after internal review. Your due diligence. The words sat there, glowing in high-contrast clarity across a screen the size of a living room wall. No one spoke. Oxblood suit leaned back in his chair. Gray blazer's pen hovered, frozen midair. Derek let out a nervous chuckle. Okay, this isn't. Clearly someone's having fun with permissions here. He looked around, scanning faces. His smirk collapsed into a shaky grin. This isn't part of the official deck. I think someone's pulling a prank. Obviously, Lena remained in the back row, unmoving, watching, poised. Her hand still rested on the phone, but her vengeance was already airborne. Nothing left to do but let gravity work. The room wasn't silent, it was arrested. The screen pulsed once like it was taking a breath, and then there it was, black text on a stark white background. Original author, Lena R. Kendall. Created 6 months ago. Last edited by Derek Lang. Author comment. Concept stolen after internal review. Do your due diligence. For a moment, it felt like the building itself held its breath. Then came the gasp, small, sharp, from the VC closest to the screen. A man in a navy sport coat leaned forward. Another pulled out his phone and, without a word, snapped a photo. The click of the camera shutter cracked like a bullet in the silence. Eric blinked so hard it looked painful. His jaw opened, then closed, then opened again like his brain was buffering. This isn't what it looks like, he said, voice high and brittle. It's a formatting error. Some internal cross-file mix-up. Someone's tampering with the presentation mid-pitch. He turned toward the screen, arms flailing in a panicked sort of jazz hands motion, as if gesturing wildly would undo metadata. The screen didn't budge. Another VC leaned in, this one older, with horn-rimmed glasses and the posture of someone who had seen 1,000 pitches and tanked 100 frauds. Can we confirm this? He asked, voice like ice shaved into a question. Derek's mouth twitched. He looked around, desperate, sweat now visibly soaking into his collar. Then he saw her. Lena, still in the back row, still in that plain hoodie. Expression unreadable. He froze like she'd slapped him from across the room. His voice dropped a notch, now sour with venom. This is sabotage, he said, pointing. She's not even supposed to be here. She broke into the system. She's trying to ruin the pitch because she's bitter. It's her word against mine. No one looked at Lena. They were still looking at the screen. And that's when the file flicked again. Slide 10 loaded, her original layout, unchanged. The one Derek had stripped and replaced. It displayed a time-stamped changelog overlay. Each edit, each overwrite, each access session. Derek's name, Derek's credentials, line after line. Then, at the bottom, flag inserted by LR. Kendall timestamp 02:17 a.m. 2 weeks ago. Hornrims leaned back, so it's not her word, it's the system's. Derek's eyes darted like a cornered animal. He reached for the laptop like he could still salvage something if he just unplugged the humiliation. Let's reset. There's obviously been a breach here. Can relaunch, Derek? It was the woman in the gray blazer. He stopped. Sit down. He obeyed, slow and stunned like gravity had turned on him. And Lena, she still hadn't said a word. But inside, beneath the mask of stillness, her pulse surged like a war drum. Not from fear, not even from rage, from clarity. Because this wasn't vindication wrapped in confetti and clapping. This was colder, cleaner. It was the math finally balancing, her name, her work, her moment. Public, documented, undeniable. Derek's voice cracked before it got loud. That was the tell, how the panic didn't explode so much as fracture. I demand this be shut down right now. He shouted, finger stabbing toward the AV cart like it was responsible. This is a breach, a violation of protocol. She accessed secured infrastructure, illegally. He turned toward the VCs, toward Lena, toward no one in particular, his rage flailing in every direction like a drowning man swatting ghosts. The investors didn't flinch. One of them reached into their coat and calmly pulled out a phone, dialing something. 2 words into the receiver, send security. And for a second, Derek smirked, mistaking the call as his salvation. He puffed his chest like a man summoning cavalry, until the man in horn-rimmed glasses clarified, she's fine. It's him we're concerned about. That did it. Whatever composure Derek had left snapped. He turned on Lena, jabbing the air with his hand. You think this makes you clever? Huh, you think this proves anything? You manipulated internal systems. You staged this. You vindictive little. The door opened mid-sentence. 2 security officers walked in, not rent-a-cops, but in-house professionals with earpieces and flat expressions. Derek froze. Sir, one of them said, calm but firm, we're going to need you to come with us. I work here, he barked. She's the hacker. I'm management. They didn't even glance at Lena, just stood their ground. He tried to push past them, spitting words like fraud and lawsuit and slander, but they gently boxed him in and herded him toward the exit like an angry, overdressed sheep. As the door closed behind them, the room finally exhaled. Lena stood, slowly, not triumphant, just done. She stepped to the front of the room, reached into her tote bag, pulled out a manila envelope. Inside, printed audit logs, file hashes, version history, access trails. She handed it to the lead investor like she was delivering the mail. He took it without a word. Everything you need is in there, she said, voice low and steady. Cross-verified and notarized via internal compliance protocols. He blinked at her, curious, maybe even a little impressed, but she didn't wait for a reply. She turned and walked out. Not fast, not slow, just straight. Nobody clapped, but every eye in the room followed her. By 7:00 p.m., her work email pinged with a calendar placeholder. Subject, HR internal review sensitive personnel matter participants. Lena Kendall, legal counsel, senior HR partner status. Confirmed the subject line didn't name Derek. It didn't need to. 2 hours later, she got the news through the grapevine. Derek Lang was on leave pending investigation. His office door badge deactivated. The company line was confidential process, but the Slack messages told a louder story. One thread was already circulating a blurry image of the metadata screen, captioned with, "The truth always renders." It had over 300 reactions, but the best message came from a stranger. A DM on her personal LinkedIn, short, crisp, saw the footage, very interested. Coffee Monday, J. Mahoney, CEO. Viro Analytics. Lena stared at it for a long moment. Relief swirled with something darker. This wasn't closure, it was proof. Proof that silence can be sharp. That data tells stories louder than screaming ever could. But she wasn't finished. There was still one version of the software Derek never saw. The better one. The leaner, cleaner, faster iteration she'd been shaping in private. Code he couldn't corrupt. Ideas he couldn't steal. He'd never let it see daylight while he still breathed influence. Now, she opened the repo. The real launch was next. The room wasn't as big. No velvet chairs. No frosted glass walls. No ambient elevator jazz humming from hidden ceiling speakers. But Lena had never felt more at home. 2 weeks had passed since the metadata detonation. Enough time for the dust to settle, for HR to conclude its investigation, for Derek Lang to disappear from the company directory like a ghost they were embarrassed to admit they hired. Officially, he resigned. Unofficially, 2 VC contacts flagged his name on a private Slack thread. Do not engage, burned credibility. Ask for deck receipts. He didn't even get to clean out his desk. Someone else boxed up his stupid personalized mug. And Lena, she was standing at a clean slate conference table at Viro Analytics headquarters, loading her final build into the demo station, every line of code written by her hands, every insight designed from scratch. No compromises, no Derek. Across the table sat 4 people, the CEO, J. Mahoney, and 3 others from her original investor incident. Same sharp eyes, same quiet scrutiny. But this time, no tension, just curiosity. She plugged in the HDMI. The screen came alive. This is what it was always supposed to be, Lena said. No slides, no theatrics, just product. The dashboard opened like it knew what they needed before they did. Real-time flowcharts adjusted as they spoke. Predictive models shifted based on the slightest tweak in input. Lena navigated the logic structure like a surgeon, fluid, fast, exact. 15 minutes in, Mahoney leaned back and laughed. Not out of amusement, out of awe. This, he said, tapping the screen, is miles ahead of what Derek showed. The hell were they even funding over there? Lena just smiled. Another investor asked the metadata thing, how'd you pull that off? She shrugged. Good systems reveal the truth. Then she looked up, locking eyes. That was the point. The room fell into a slow, approving silence. They didn't clap. This wasn't a performance. This was a reckoning. After the meeting, contracts came in fast, consultancy offers, potential acquisition terms, full autonomy. Viro wanted her, not as another mid-tier employee. They offered her a division. She didn't say yes, not yet. Instead, she went home, poured herself a drink, opened her laptop, logged into the internal company portal, her former company, clicked into the ethics channel, wrote up a detailed report. Names, timestamps, screenshots, everything she'd held back. How the system let Derek gain visibility, how leadership ignored version trails, how strategic delegation had become camouflage for intellectual theft. She attached the full PDF, hit submit, chose anonymous, and then she closed the lid, not smiling, not weeping, just breathing. Outside, traffic rolled by under a purple dusk. Derek was gone, her work was free. The truth had walked in wearing metadata and never needed to raise its voice. And Lena, she was already building the next thing. Quiet, sharp, hers. Appreciate you sticking around, you wise old rebels. Smash that subscribe button, or this fossil might just cause another epic fiasco.